In in continuing with what I was saying earlier regarding the level of corruption that we are so much used to in sub-Saharan African countries. It is just abominable. Seriously, it is time the people condemn um, directly what is going on. And as I said earlier, it has become a norm. So much so that this is the path to enriching oneself. And I will dare challenge anyone who would argue otherwise that this ain't true, because this is exactly what is happening. People go into politics in dark-skinned populated countries in sub-Saharan Africa to enrich themselves. And you will find out that it is the elite, highly educated in society, who are notorious for this. And sometimes I wonder as to why the call for education, which one hears so often, for dark-skinned populated people in sub-Saharan Africa. And unfortunately, I see education as being the downfall of the society, because it seems to me that as much as it is true that education is the backbone of every society that wants to develop, it seems to have backfired in our society, because it creates this very huge gap between those who are educated, who then go on to sort of have access to the best the society offers, and those who are unfortunate not to have had any form of education, those that I would refer to as the illiterate. And there's this huge gap that has existed so long. So the illiterate, the unfortunate, seems to have been left behind, and there are tons of them. I mean, in comparison with the elite, there are tons, and because they have no voices, or they have no voice, they are ignored. And the elite goes on and amass wealth, milking their own societies. We all know that this is nothing new. That corruption is directly related to Africa and African leaders. And it is true, because we've seen it over the years. But nothing seems to be done. And it's getting worse. It is getting worse. And that is why I have found it necessary that, even though this subject appears in the latter part of my book, I have decided to take it up now, because it is going on now. If you look across some of these sub-Saharan African countries, it is simply ridiculous that you hear about a family, a man who is either the leader of their government, the president, the prime minister, and his family and friends and connections having so much, whilst the majority of their own population suffers immensely. I have said before that it is not compared to any other society around the world. When you think of suffering, poverty, I could go on and on, degradation. It bothers me, it really worries me that we have allowed this to go on for so long. And when I say we have allowed that, I'm talking of people who care, because I'm sure that this is known every day in and day out. When I read and I talk to people, it is a known fact. But why isn't anything done about it? And sometimes I wonder as to the actions of the developed countries, who seem very often to want to make a comment or two about things going on in Africa, as they say, in Africa. But, they keep pumping money in there. I don't understand. And knowing very well that there is so much mismanagement down there. The continent of Africa, which is directly connected to poverty, is not true. It shouldn't be true. Because this continent is so wealthy. It is so wealthy. It is simply so wealthy, blessed with abundance of resources. But it is connected with poverty. And I have, through my research, come to the conclusion that that is simply not true. The continent of Africa is not poor. Africans are not poor. Africa is just unfortunate to have bad leaders who mismanage the economies and the finances of their societies, and something needs to be done. I would really, really love to call upon everyone who's listening, who cares, to start by some little step to do something in whatever way. Try and relate. This attitude and this action must stop. It just is not right. The leaders, people who want to go into politics, should be accountable to their people, to their society, to their communities. It should not be that people should have carte blanche, go to the top in politics or in political establishments in their countries, and thereby have access to wealth and riches and misuse them. It is just not right. And I will emphasize, I call upon every individual who cares to do something, be it little or big, whatever you can do. Use your voice, use any form of communication to relate to people in your societies that this should not be acceptable. If you look today, some of the societies that could be compared to the level of some of the societies in sub-Saharan Africa have all changed. I get very, very proud when I see people in Thailand going on demonstration against their leaders for some sort of mismanagement or corruption. I get touched when I see communities in Brazil get up and demonstrate against their leaders for some sort of mismanagement or corruption. It is going on in various communities around the world, because if you do not say anything, just like many sub-Saharan African countries, if you do not say anything, it is like accepting that it is okay, but it's not. It is not okay, especially when you think about the societies in sub-Saharan Africa and the suffering of the dark-skinned populations. It shouldn't be acceptable. People should speak against it. Very often I know that there's this issue of tribalism and it's been going on for generations. Fine. But to have change, it must start somewhere. And the problem is not only due to illiteracy, tribalism, and all that. No. I believe, and I want to emphasize, it is my opinion, I strongly believe that it starts with the leaders. Every leader that goes into political office in any position should actually serve, should be accountable to their community. And this is very important. My research showed me something which shocked me. Over the years, of course, there's been some leaders who just simply think that they are the only ones that can, lead the governance of their country. Therefore, they stay in power for, decades. We know that. There are examples. There is some going on in Uganda today. There are some going on in different parts of the African countries, sub-Saharan African countries. Rather, as well as leaders who've been in power in the past, mismanaged the economies and the finances of the societies, and they have not been called up to account for, because this same malpractice is repeated time and time again. It should stop. It should stop. The people who have no voices should be given a voice by those of you who can do something. You have to, one way or the other, impact your own society from wherever you are, that this practice needs to stop. It needs to stop. When is it going to stop? That the citizens from many of these very rich, dark-skinned populated countries in sub-Saharan Africa have to suffer so much, whilst a few sit on tons of money. And may I add, with the help of the international communities, because all these huge banks that take in the millions of stolen money are situated in the developed countries, in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, in England, in the United States. And therefore, I dare say that for every individual suffering, for every child will see, that we're so used to, for every child of direct effect on their lives through famine, hunger, poverty, whatever, in whatever form that we so often see. All the people who are directly or indirectly connected to any form of corruption should count themselves responsible for those terrible images that we see often, because they are part of it. For every company in the developed country that abates and helps governments in sub-Saharan African countries, or companies dupe in any form of corruption, those societies should feel themselves responsible. And all this attitude of wanting to help Africa and all that nonsense should stop. Because, it's a charade. We all know that. It is time that something be done. Every leader that goes into political office should be accountable. Leaders of today and leaders from the past need to be brought forth and let them account for what they have done. Because the coming generation is calling out